Welcome back to another episode of Snow Day, Live, Eat, Be Well. And today we are batch cooking for the freezer. Super exciting. So today we're going to get started with some slow cooker marinara. Now when I first became a vegan, I was like, what can you do with your slow cooker? And the truth is there's a lot that you can do. So this is actually a multi-step process, so we're going to work on this a couple of times today. So you're going to see me throughout the day, and you'll probably be able to tell because I'll probably look different several times today. So, okay. So we've got our slow cooker, and I have it turned to low, and I'm going to just let it cook low and slow all day long. So I like to start by putting my liquids in first. So what I have here is crushed tomatoes, and so these are the 28 ounce cans. So I'm going to use 3 cans of that. Just 3 cans, just going to toss them in. Alrighty. Now this is going to make a lot, but we're going to freeze it, so that's okay. Then I have 1 can of diced tomatoes, and I like to add this because it's super liquidy, and that's going to add the liquid that the crock pot likes to have. Crushed tomatoes are pretty liquidy too. Then, I don't know why, maybe this is a throwback to my childhood, but I'm going to add some tomato paste. I add 2 cans of tomato paste. And the great thing about the crock pot is, you know, it's going to cook all day. And so everything's going to sort of mix together and get yummers in there. So I'm going to just put 2 cans of tomato paste, and I like to put tomato paste in there because it kind of thickens up the sauce, and we don't eat a lot of spaghetti or pasta with tomato sauce on it, but we do eat a lot of homemade pizzas that we use this on, and so this makes a sort of a thicker spaghetti sauce, and that's how we like it to roll. Okay, now spaghetti sauce is a great place where you can sneak in lots and lots of vegetables. So what I have here is half a zucchini. I just had these in my fridge. I used it in a different recipe. So I'm just going to kind of go through here. I have 4 carrots that I sliced up and 2 mushrooms. I don't know if you can even see all of this. Maybe I should move you closer. Doo -doo. Okay, so I have 4 carrots, 2 mushrooms. I have 8 cloves of garlic. We like ours super garlicky. And half a yellow squash, half of a zucchini, 4 stalks of celery, and 1 diced onion. Now you can leave out any of that or add in anything that you want to add in. It's all your prerogative. Okay, that's gonna fill us right to the top. So if you don't have one of these giant crock pots like I have, can you see how giant this is? This is like the family style crock pot. If you don't have one of these giant crock pots, then you may end up having to have this recipe, but either way, it works good. Okay, and I'm going to give it a quick stir, but before I do that, I'm going to add some spices. So I'm going to add just a few pinches of this like Southwest seasoning. I think it's called, I don't know, it's like a Cajun-y kind of seasoning. Chipotle seasoning at like Costco or whatever. So I'm going to put a couple pinches of that. And I'm going to put a couple pinches of sugar on top. That's also a throwback from my mom. I think I've talked about that with you before. Just a couple. Okay, now I'm going to stir it together and see what it looks like and how full it is. I also like to add in here, but I don't know if I have room. So I'm going to test it. Ooh, look how chunky that is. Ah, we got a little room. It's going to cook up, right? Okay, so I'm going to put a handful of spinach in there as well. Okay. That spinach is going to cook down a lot. Okay. Oh, you know what else I want? I add, sorry, I almost forgot. And some basil. So I don't have fresh basil right now. It's really hard to get here for some reason in the winter time. It's hard enough and expensive enough in the summertime, but in the winter time it's almost impossible to get at a price point that I can afford. I like it to taste basil-y, so I'm going to put a lot of basil-y flavor in there, and that's what I'm going to add. Now at the end I'm going to taste it, and if it needs something like oregano or something, then I'm going to add that in. Actually, you know what? Maybe I'll just taste it right now and we'll see. It'll be cold, but that's okay. We can guess. It's going to be so garlicky and yummy. Okay, so now I'm going to put my lid on, and I'm just going to let that cook all day on low, probably for like 8 hours, and it's going to start looking kind of soupy, and then I'm going to show you the next step. Okay, so my marinara sauce has been cooking all day. It's been simmering away, and as you can see, it is super chunky, and I don't particularly like chunky marinara sauce, and like I said, we use this primarily on our pizza, sometimes on our pasta sauce, or on our pasta. So what I'm going to do is I am going to take this and I'm going to put it into my Vitamix. Now, it's still warm. I've been letting it cool off for a little while, but it's still pretty warm. Actually, I think I'm going to use a ladle. That's going to take too long. So because it's warm, you know, you only want to fill it up maybe halfway. So I'm going to put it onto the Vitamix, put it on the blender, and then I'm just going to whiz it up just for a couple seconds. It's still kind of chunky, but it's not chunky like that. Now it's just sort of medium chunky. Then I'm going to take a glass jar, a mason jar, to freeze them in. Now here's a tip about freezing in jars. I have this old bottle. Actually, we ate this today because I didn't have any homemade stuff. Now you can see this is like a wide mouth jar, and it doesn't really have like a shoulder. Whereas this is a little jar and it has a big shoulder. These tend to crack more in the freezer, so if you have a problem with that, you're going to want to fill it up. This technically is the freezer fill line, okay? But you're going to want to fill it up lower than that. I fill mine up to about right there. With these, you can fill them up a little bit higher. And you're going to want to let it cool down completely before you put it in the freezer. So I'm going to just whiz this up. Oh, and I'll show you how I do it. So I use one of these. You can buy them at your big box store for canning. Put it on top of your thing, your mason jar, and then just pour it in. Actually, that's almost perfect. Okay. So that's what it's going to look like. And then I'm just going to let that cool down, put a mason lid on it, and then put it in my freezer. And I'll show you what that looks like when it's all done. Okay, so I've loaded up all the marinara sauce. I reused my bottle from today, and so I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 bottles out of that crock pot. It is still really warm. So what I'm going to do is let it set on my counter probably until I go to bed tonight. We'll see. Until it's completely room temperature. I mean, not warm at all. 'Cause if you put it in the freezer in the glass jar when it's even just a teensy bit warm, then you run the risk of cracking the jar, which you don't want to do inside of your freezer. So if you don't feel comfortable leaving food on the counter, which I probably wouldn't do it overnight, then you can put it in the fridge to let them cool down. So if they're not totally cool by the time I go to bed, then I'll put them in the fridge overnight and then put them in the freezer tomorrow. Another thing you can do is put the jars in the fridge while like your stuff is cooking. Then the jars will be super cool, but sometimes if you put the hot stuff in the jar, blah, blah, blah. So the best thing to do, I've found, my experience, is have the jar, put the stuff in, let the stuff cool down in the jar, then put it in the freezer. So I've taste tested this around the house. I wish I would have been filming it, but my battery has been dying all day. Everybody said it's delicioso, and I don't know if you can see, but it's not chunky anymore. So we were able to get all those delicious vegetables in there in a not chunky pasta sauce, and it's really tasty, and there's no salt in it. So that's awesome. And it's still super good. So until next time, live, eat, and be well, and batch cook.
I hope you'll subscribe to my channel and check out my Facebook page and website.